Now, not so long ago, they were writing George Osborne's political obituary. His omni-shambles budget of 2012 and the persistently lacklustre performance of the British economy meant his reputation was in the dirt. Things look rather different now. A slew of better economic news has resulted in the Chancellor pretty much claiming he's been vindicated. If true, where does that leave his critics, especially in the Labour Party? After years stuck on the runway, it finally looks as though the British economy has taken off. It grew by 0.7% in the second quarter, and forecasts for the rest of the year have been revised up. What's more, the Office for National Statistics now says that the so-called double-dip recession never actually happened. Unemployment is down in the 3 months to July, and the number of people claiming job seekers allowance is falling at its fastest rate since 1997. On Monday, George Osborne said that his policies were bearing fruit.
We held our nerve when many told us to abandon our plan. And as a result, thanks to the efforts and the sacrifices of the British people, Britain is turning a corner.
The message for his Labour critics was pretty clear. The Chancellor thinks he was right, they were wrong. And the Shadow Business Secretary, Chuka Umanna, joins me now for the Sunday interview. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Andrew. Good to be here.
Do you accept that the economy has turned the corner?
Well, I think it's good that a stalled recovery appears to have come back to life, but let's get this in perspective. We've had 3 wasted years. We've got the worst economic recovery in history. Debt is up. We've had rising, record youth unemployment. And if you ask most of your viewers who are watching this programme, do you feel better or worse off now compared to 2010, the majority will tell you they feel worse off because on average wages are down £1,500 compared to May 2010. So that's the situation. And the question is, what is the government going to do about it? And one of the things we've seen talked about, the Deputy Prime Minister was talking about it this morning, my opposite number, Vince Cable, has been talking about this as well, is what is happening in the housing market, because it seems that much of the solution to powering the recovery in the eyes of George Osborne lies in sorting out the housing market. But the problem is we are at grave risk of there being another housing bubble. We know, because of research that came out this week, that housing in the UK is 3 times more expensive than in the US. We know that house prices are rising 5 times faster than wages, but we also know that the government is building new housing at a slowest rate that we've seen since the 1920s.
Isn't Labour complaining about a housing bubble a bit like Satan complaining about sin?
Well, no, but the question is, we all know that coming out of the 2008-9 crash, that we can't go back to business as usual and that we need to build a new model of growth that is more sustainable and long-term.
This housing bubble you're talking about now, first of all, it's not a bubble. It may turn into one.
I said the risk of a bubble.
But it's nothing like what happened under Labour when prices soared.
Well, look, as I said, in 2008-9, we had the crash and we knew that we needed to reconfigure the way that our economy works. And having an economy based very much on property prices isn't a good thing, but also we need to rebalance our economy. And the other thing that we saw this week were the unemployment statistics. Now, it's welcome that overall unemployment has come down, but the problem is we see, if you like, different parts of the country, in half of the UK, unemployment actually went up, like in the east of England, the northwest, the northeast, Yorkshire and Humber, and it went down in other parts. We know that we also need to rebalance our economy so that we don't just rely on consumption and, say, property prices, but we grow our productive sectors, manufacturing, for example, and also that we grow our exports as well. And we know we've got a continuing trade deficit.
I want to, well, of course, we always had to have a trade deficit. There was never a year when there was a trade surplus under Labour.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. That's something that has to be addressed. We're talking about changing.
Well, you had 13 years to do it and didn't do it.
If we're talking about changing the model,
I want to come on to a lot of what you've mentioned, but I want to ask you this first of all. Would you scrap the Help to Buy scheme?
No, we haven't said that we would do that. But the point...
Why not if it's causing a housing
But the
bubble?
point is, if you let me finish my sentence, is on the one hand, what Help to Buy, and obviously it's a two-stage. At the moment, the scheme is in relation to new build.
Sure.
Next year, it'll be in relation to existing housing, is that if you only look to sorting out assisting people to buy, but you don't actually sort out the supply of housing, then that is a recipe for some of the problems that we've seen in the past. So our argument has been build more houses, by all means help people buy them, but if you don't have the supply, then you end up with rising house prices.
That's obvious. Labour said government austerity would prevent the return of growth. Austerity is still with us, but so is growth. You were wrong.
Well, look, we never said that growth would never return. But what we said was that if you went for an overly extreme deficit reduction package, then you would choke off the recovery and you would choke off growth. And frankly, that's what we saw for 3 years. Let's not forget, Andrew, that if you say look at the US economy since May 2010, the US economy has grown at 3 times the rate of the UK economy. The German economy has grown at twice the rate.
But the British economy is now growing more quickly than the American or the German economies.
Well, but if you look over time, we haven't seen that happen.
But it is now.
And our point is, yes, that may or may not be the case. But my point to you is that's 3 years where people have been undergoing huge stress, huge worry. And of course, OK, it's good that we've got growth back again. But the question is, Andrew, what kind of growth?
All right.
And what we've said is, for example...
No, I'm going to come on to that, but I want to stick with this point because your credibility depends on your previous analysis. And there are some doubts about it. This is what you were saying not that long ago, in 2012 and earlier this year. Our economy has flatlined near the 0% mark as a consequence of the government's economic policies. They've choked off growth. No ifs, no buts. This is a flatlining economy. Now, you and the Labour Party repeatedly said that austerity had choked off growth, not delayed it, not that we'd have to wait a little bit longer, but that we faced indefinite flatlining if the government persisted with Plan A. You were wrong.
We weren't wrong because, as I've just said, we had 3 years where the economy wasn't moving. Let's remind ourselves, George Osborne was predicting that the economy was going to grow by 6.9% over the time between the start of this Parliament and now. It's only grown by 1.8%. And that was the point that we were making. We did not say that we would never, ever have a return to growth. Well,
actually, you never said that austerity would only temporarily delay growth. We've looked through your speeches, your quotes, Ed Balls too. We cannot find no reference to say this is simply delaying the recovery. It will come.
But equally...
You said that austerity would choke off growth. If that's true, why has it returned now?
Did we say that it would choke off growth forever?
No, but you never said it will delay growth. You said
but we
it
never
would
said
choke it off.
We didn't say it would choke off growth forever. And
now
actually,
you've changed your tune.
And actually, I actually think, I mean, your package at the top of this programme sort of kind of frame this around George Osborne. This isn't a kind of Westminster soap opera political game. This is actually people's lives. And I think, actually, the people who deserve huge credit for the growth that we are seeing are, of course, our country's businesses, who, despite the adversity, despite the tough economic times, have actually succeeded. And they are the ones who have actually powered this growth. It's not for us in Westminster to take all the credit for this. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got through these difficult times.
You blamed the government for lack of growth. You've done that consistently, and you may well be right to do that. So therefore, when the growth comes, the government's going to take some credit. I mean, look at the situation Britain finds itself in now. We know that this recovery has got a lot of parts of the country to reach, but this is the OECD annualized growth in the G7, the world's biggest economies, expected to be 2.5%. That's pretty healthy. Britain now expected to be 3.5%, faster than any other country in the G7. But that's a recovery.
But the question is, well, look, I'm not denying that
we are seeing recovery now.
I'm not denying that we are seeing a stalled recovery coming back to life. But the question is, who benefits from the growth? And as I said, on average, your viewers have sustained a £1,500 pay cut. And if you compare it, you're looking at international comparators. That is the second biggest fall in the G20 since May 2010 in terms of what people are earning. Because we had the biggest
financial services. Well, we took the biggest crash. And financial services are still in decline, down 8%.
Financial services are about 10% of our economy.
And in decline.
It is not the only part of our economy. But the point is...
No one says that.
The point is who benefits, and the question is what kind of growth do you
let's
get?
look at
And we want to see, we're very clear, look, I think it's good, for example, as I said earlier, that unemployment is falling, but we don't just want people to have any old job, we want them to have decent jobs that pay a wage that you can live off and that are more secure. That is what people want.
Let me show you then the unemployment figures, the recent change.
Yeah.
Your constant criticism has been that all the new jobs are part-time. They're not now, they're full-time. If you look at that full-time employment, up 94,000 within that period. Actually up more. Some of these part-time jobs have fallen because they've been converted into full-time jobs.
But Andrew, this is a short time frame. If you look at
it's since the recovery began.
Half the jobs that have been created since May 2010 have been part-time jobs. We know that we have roughly 700,000 people who right now are working part-time who would like to have full-time.
Of course.
We know that actually over the last 20 years, people now feel more insecure at work than ever. Now, the question is, as I said, what kind of growth are you getting and what kind of employment? And the other point to make to point out from this, and I think you may have touched upon it, is the uneven spread of this across our economy. As we rebalance so that we've got wealth more evenly shared across the regions, in places, like I said, the North East, the North West, Yorkshire and the Humber, the east of England, they have seen unemployment increase. Other parts it's fallen, that's a good thing. But as we work towards having a new model of growth, which is better balanced.
But the service sector is growing now, manufacturing is growing now, construction is growing
Andrew,
now,
I'm not denying any
and
of those
financial
things.
services are in decline, so the rebalance is happening.
Not
regionally, but sectorally.
It is not happening to the degree that we need to transform our economy so that we have a more long-term sustainable model of growth. I mean, that's why we've been talking about the need for a proper comprehensive industrial strategy that all of government is working towards, so we can reconfigure our economy. That must be our goal.
It's your party conference coming up, not this week, but next week. I'm sure you're looking forward to it a lot.
I am very much looking forward to it.
Why do Ed Miliband's approval ratings get worse the more people see of him?
Well, I don't know. I don't accept that. But the thing that matters...
Well, I'll give you the figure. His ratings are minus 36. I'm just giving you the figure.
Andrew, if you just let me finish my sentence.
Of course, carry on.
But my point is, polls go up and down. I've said that on this programme before.
But they haven't for him. His approval rating has gone consistently down.
What actually matters are votes. And all I know is that under my leader's leadership, we have seen the Labour Party put on almost 2,000 extra councillors, importantly in the areas like Cannock Chase, Hastings, Norwich, even Whitney, in areas like that where we need to be winning. Well, Whitney happens to be the feminists.
But you always win, councillor. Let me show you this.
But we have been putting on votes and, importantly, members as well.
Let me show you this. This is a net satisfaction rating.
Yeah.
Your leader is now more unpopular than Gordon Brown was when he took Labour to the worst defeat in living memory.
I don't think Gordon Brown put on anything. An achievement. Gordon Brown didn't put on anything like the number of councillors. As I said, votes are what matter, Andrew. Votes are what matter.
Only
and if you look at
2% of people think that Ed Miliband is a capable leader. Twice as many people think Elvis Presley lives on the moon.
But these are polls, and you can talk to me about Elvis Presley. Maybe that puts in context
Maybe he should be your leader.
Your obsession with polls. But what I'm obsessed about are votes, and we've been winning back support in the important areas. Right. And most importantly as well, the other thing, important too, is that you're putting on members. And since 2010, we've put on thousands of members. And that compare and contrast that to Conservative Party, which, by the way, hasn't won a general election since 1992.
Well, they still haven't.
Which won't even won't even disclose its membership figure.
All right, one final question, because it's in your area. Why won't you pledge to renationalise Royal Mail?
Because that would be like writing a blank cheque. We don't even know at the moment how much the government will receive for the sale of Royal Mail, and therefore how on earth can I judge how much it will cost for us to buy it back? That would be completely irresponsible. But I'm very clear, look, the government doesn't need to do this right now. The entire country is against what they're trying to do.
There's something else I want to ask you, because it's interesting, and that is sources in the city and in Whitehall, they tell me that if Labour pledged to renationalise it, it would actually kill off the flotation. So if you're against it, why don't you do it?
Well, for me to pledge to renationalise Royal Mail would be writing a blank cheque. And I look at the budget.
No, but if we
win the general election, Andrew, please let me finish my sentence.
No, but if you put it in the prospectus, what I'm saying is that people in the city who know more about these things than you or I say it wouldn't happen at all. So why don't you do it?
Because that would be irresponsible. It would be like me writing a blank cheque for 2.5, 3 billion, who knows, to renationalise Royal Mail if Labour is elected into government.
You wouldn't have to write the cheque if it didn't happen. That's my point. Well, it wouldn't happen if you did this.
I have to deal with the facts. I'm not going to deal with whatever somebody may be speculating about in the city. I think we need to be quite careful sometimes to the extent to which we take on board those issues. But what I'm saying is, the fact is, for me to pledge to renationalise it now would be like writing a blank cheque. And we are going to be a fiscally responsible government, and that is why I'm not prepared to do that.
OK. Ed Bowles has clearly been talking to you. Chuka Umanna, thank you for joining us. He talks to me too.